Hi guys, it's me. I'm gonna do the gravy today. So, me personally, I get gravy over me that's always splattering. So I bought this Paula Deen trusty apron. It's made of plastic, easy cleanup, and look, fits everybody. Just snaps on, and it has pockets too. Anyway, this gravy, I'm gonna put Brajol in there. I did it with Dizzy Flo and Dizzy Dolores when they were here last August, and it was the first time I learned how to do it. So I'm gonna pass it on. You don't have to put it in your gravy. I don't always put it in my gravy, but that's up to you. It takes a little more work, but it is what it is. It is a steak. I bought chuck steak, and I bought a nice big fat one that I sliced it, and I made it to this size. I've already made, if you can come over here, Danny. I've already made these three. I'm going to only put 4 in it, the gravy, only because I put a lot of meat. You're looking around, there's a lot of things here. I'm gonna go through every single thing that I'm gonna do one by one. First, I'm gonna start off with the ingredients, but I just wanted to show you what I do with this. First, I take this and I pound it down. It's good that it has some fat in there because that's what makes it nice and soft. And we're gonna fry it up a little bit so it doesn't shred. You put a couple of sticks of pepperoni in there and home grade basil from my garden, guys. I'm gonna put a little basil in there, and I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of grated cheese, okay? And then what you do is roll it. And then you tie it. Tying it is probably the hardest part, or maybe pounding the meat can be. You want to kind of get from one end to the other, because then the stuff inside won't fall out. I know this may be overkill, but it is what it is. Then you knot it. And then we'll cut off the little excess, and I'm gonna put this aside for now, okay? Now I'm gonna go through the ingredients. Cut this for now, again. I don't want. Hi, I'm back. So I'm gonna give you the ingredients of what you're gonna need to put in there. There's a lot of meat here. You decide how much you wanna cook, and you know, if you're gonna only do, if you come over here, you're gonna see the size pot that I'm cooking. It's gonna be this whole pot. So I'm making a lot of gravy. I freeze it, it freezes well, plus I give some to my friends. Okay, so there's gonna be hot and sweet sausages. These sausages that I buy are really large, so I cut them in half. Of course, there's gonna be pepperoni. There's stewing beef. I couldn't find anything that it looked good or was reasonably priced in the stewing beef, so I bought a chuck steak, and it's thick. Chuck is good because when it cooks in a sauce, it adds, it gets such a great texture, and you see all the marbleization, so it's a great piece of meat. Normally it's tough, but in a gravy it gets soft. So I cut up one. I may do another half depending on what I've got in there. Of course, the Brajol that we made together. The pork and beef bones, I may not use all of that. And here is, I'm gonna go into detail with this. You start off with beef and pork ground, okay? And I'm gonna get specific with this. This is gonna wait till later. So right now, I just want you to know, in cutting this, if you have to buy a steak, get a chuck steak. That's a good size. Don't make it too small, because once it cooks, you gotta remember, this gravy is gonna be cooking for about 4 hours. Maybe even longer, depending on how much you're making. You know, you guys have, and you have everybody together, it's a lot of gravy, and people can take home, you know, like Michelle will take home all the leftovers. Haha. Uh-oh. Is she gonna see this? Am I gonna be in trouble? Anyway, I think that's gonna be good for now. So this is gonna be the size that you can need, because as it shrinks as it cooks. I like them not thin, I like them a little thicker. They stay nice and moist because I fry this up first in the oil, and then I throw my garlic and other stuff in. So right now, and my husband tends to steal most of the pepperoni as it's cooking, so I put a little extra. Pepperoni can be a little salty, so we'll see how we season it. You know, it's how much salt comes out of here. You start off with a little olive oil in the pot, depending on the size pot or how much you're using. And you turn the gas on. I like to do medium-high to get the oil to start cooking. If you come over here, I've peeled some garlic. I'm going to chop this up. But first I'm going to put the pepperoni in there because I don't like the taste of burnt garlic, and burnt garlic will ruin every dish every time. So I let this fry up a little bit, and then I put the garlic in. And then I start throwing all the meat in there. And what you do, the reason why you throw the meat in there is because you start searing the meat and you let it brown. And you start letting that brown, and then all the meat has to be brown before you start throwing in the tomatoes. All right, so let's start with the pepperoni. I leave it a little chunky. I don't really mince it because, I mean, some people have their own way of doing things. I like garlic. Anyway, I start throwing that in there. I'm going to do the brajol because I want them to get nice and brown so they sear and they hold together, because sometimes in the gravy, the meat gets a little soft and you don't want it to shred. So if you notice, I'm going to let this get brown on the other side. If you're not going to do the brajol, you can let these things fry up a little bit and then start doing, you take it up when I do the sausage. If you look in here, you're going to see that the brajol is starting to get brown and getting seared on all sides. And really, that's what you want to happen to all the meat. Throw in all the sausage and add that to the mix. And they too have to get brown. At this point, I'm going to throw in all the stewing beef. And I'm going to throw in pork bones, pork and beef bones. This is going to come off. I want this one. and let that cook up a little bit. Big. You let it cook for about maybe 5, not even 5 minutes, but I'm gonna cover this because all the steam in there will get all the juices going on the meat, and the meat will release all its flavor. So let that cook for about, maybe 3-4 minutes. So I've done whole tomatoes, a lot more work, a lot more time, but that's good for the marinara sauces. For the meat gravy, I like to do the can, but I only like this company and the San Marzano. I buy the organic. You don't have to buy the organic, but this company has the best, in my opinion, and I've talked to a lot of people. The sauce isn't bitter. I don't know what it is about the tomatoes. It's a part of Italy where these tomatoes come from, and for me, it makes the best gravy. This is what this looks like. It's whole peeled tomatoes, but they're, let me see if I can get a spoon in here. They're nice and chunky. And this breaks down, and we'll put it in the gravy, and I smash it too, but they're beautiful and they taste delicious. So, as you can see, it's got that cook color. Some of them, you'll see some red. That's fine. You could start throwing in the tomatoes now. I'm going to use 4 cans. This is a huge pot. Just put some paper in here. Whoops. Sorry. You can squish them as you move them around. Tomatoes, depending on how much you could use, depending on your pot. I had to use 6 cans here, but the tomato paste and everything comes later. But right now, you're gonna let this all cook together. This stays on a medium-high flame, and you start putting in, I put in basil. I throw a little bit of grated cheese in there, and I let that start cooking. Whoops. This will reduce as the meat shrinks. It'll start bubbling. So medium, I would say medium-high heat, and let that cook. So like I said, a medium-high heat, you let that cook for about an hour. And then after that, we're gonna put in the tomato paste, okay? But right now, it should look like this. You have all your meat in there, your meat is all covered. Your tomatoes will get more liquefied, and your meat will reduce, and you'll have more sauce in there. In an hour, we're gonna put in the tomato paste, a little more water. Oh, my bad, forgot something. At this point also, you add some wine. I would say about a cup. Again, this all depends on your pot and how much you have going on. I love the taste. I'm gonna put a little more. And of course, you should serve yourself a glass of wine while you're doing this. It's always so much better. I'm not going to put any seasoning in it yet. I want it to start boiling. In about 40 minutes, I'm going to check it. I want to see how the meat has reduced and how much liquid I have in there, and I'll give it a little taste to see if I want to throw salt, because you got to remember the pepperoni gave it salt. I want to let some of that all blend and then taste it and see what I need. Meatball part, that's separate. I fry my meatballs and I let them sit to cool a little bit, and then I put them in the gravy. At that point, the gravy has had its tomato paste and still cooking. So for my meatballs, there is ground beef and then there's ground pork. Okay, it's a must that you put the two. Some people even put veal in there. Some people even put lamb in there. I'm not crazy of that. So we put garlic, and I put garlic and onion, but I don't cut them. I like them, I put them in the chopper over here, this little guy. Or if you have a what do you call it? I can't think right now.
Processor.
Yes, the food processor. Thank you, Danny. You want a little chunks, but you don't want them so chunky, because you want to be able, when you're eating the meatball, you want to be able to taste that garlic and some of that onion. Anyway, so as you can see, I have onion, garlic. For me and what I have about 4 pounds of meat here. So I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 cloves of garlic. This was a huge onion. I don't like it too oniony. I just want a hint of taste in there. So I'm gonna put these pieces in, maybe not even that big one, to see what it looks like. You know me, it's about me and look and feel instead of measuring. So I'm gonna chop this bad boy up a little bit. This chopster is old and it doesn't. Okay, so this is what that looks like. So it's gonna be in the meatballs, but it's gonna liquefy. It's gonna actually become translucent, because as it cooks with the meatball. So I'm gonna put, see, I may not even use it. It might be too much. That's too much onion. If anything, I'll probably use a little more garlic. Okay, so that's that. We are going to put, for this amount of meat, I am going to put 2 eggs. Oh my God, what the hell? These eggs. Ugh. Okay, I am going to put some cheese. I'm going to put a little bit of garlic powder, believe it or not. And of course, I'm going to put, I like panko. Panko breadcrumbs. It's Italian style. And of course, you mix this bad boy around. You got to mix the pork with the beef, the onions, so I've mixed all the ingredients, which are garlic, eggs, a little bit of garlic powder. I'm going to throw a little bit of salt, but I always put in, not a lot, just a little bit of milk. Old wives' tale, I guess. They say that it makes the meatballs soft. I don't know if it's true or not, but my meatballs always come out nice and juicy. So it's probably true. Not a lot of milk, just a little. And then mix it again. Now, when you season this with salt, keep in mind that once you fry them up and then put them inside the sauce, it is going to absorb some of that sauce and whatever seasonings you have in there. So don't over season this because they may be salty. So not a lot of salt, just a sprinkle. I already put some garlic powder. Judging by this, put the garlic and the onions. I think we're good with the garlic powder. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of salt. After I wash my hands, I'll show you what I do. So like a pinch. Again, guys, I don't measure. I'm just gonna, I mean, that's a lot of meat. That's really not a lot of sauce. Worst case scenario, you put a little salt on it, right? I'd rather it be a little under salty than too much salt. I don't like salty food. All right, and we're ready to start meatballing them up and frying. Let me just clean up and then we'll go to the next step. It's been about maybe 40 minutes, I guess, and I'm checking the gravy sauce. I added a little garlic powder in there. I'm gonna add some salt. Again, I don't measure. Pinch here and a pinch there. So I'm going to let that marinate in there, and I will taste it later. And I will see if I need more. Every so often, turn the pot, because if you have a big pot like this, or even a little pot, the meat on the bottom tends to cook faster because it's closer to the heat. Just keep on turning so everything gets even. If you see little chunks of tomatoes, if you buy that type of tomato, make sure you kind of like smish it against the wall of the pot. Okay? So hey guys, I don't know if you are into Game of Thrones, but I certainly was, and I was suckered into buying a couple of goblets. This is the Targaryen Fire and Blood cup. And by the way, that series ended so shitty. I'm really pissed off. It was just rushed. I don't know if you guys are into it. If you are, that's how I feel. Anyway, we're gonna start doing the meatballs. So, meatballs have to be fried first. Some people bake them. For me, frying is the way to go. I am oil in the pot. I don't know what this white stuff is. I put a drop of oil in there. Although this meat will make its own oil, so it doesn't stick. Oh, meatballs. Again, preference and size. I forgot to tell you, some people put parsley in their meatballs. I don't. Some people put basil in their meatballs. I don't. I feel that I season the gravy with enough of seasonings that, you know, as it absorbs, you know, it'll get into the meatball and it'll taste delicious, trust me. But again, your choice. If you feel you like parsley, put it in. You want basil, put it in. You want more cheese, put it in. It really is up to you and your family's, you know, taste buds. And fit all these meatballs except for one guy. I'm trying to maneuver him. It's like a puzzle. Anyway, I turn my meatballs with a spoon because otherwise they break. So I kind of let them get browned on one side, then I flip them over. I'll do that maybe 1 or 2 more times, and they should be done.
Got a spot right here.
Yeah, no, they're still cooking.
You can put that guy
Oh,
right there.
well, oh, look here, it'll work right there. There you go. Yay, it worked. So as that's cooking, it's been about an hour or close to it. The gravy is ready now for the tomato paste, because at this point, a lot of the meat has shrunk down a little bit. You can see there's more liquid in the pot. And now comes the tomato paste. I don't really care what kind of tomato paste you use. I happen to use the same brand. My choice. You could use whatever. I'm using a whole can, maybe even more. There's a lot of gravy here, but I will see how it feels and looks and tastes in a minute. Once you dump the tomato paste, you always mix it with water. I'll always throw maybe one or maybe even two. This will thicken it up a little bit. And it also depends on the tomatoes that you use. Some might be more watery, but don't use too much paste. Paste can be a little sweet, and I don't like sweet sauce. So right now, it's looking good. I'm gonna let it cook for maybe another 10 minutes and stir it again and see what it is, because you see some of this has to dissolve. You know, there are chunks in there. Let it all boil down and mix together, and then we'll see what I need. So I did add another maybe teaspoon of more tomato paste for me, because this pot is huge. You're not going to need any more. I mean, on a regular standard pot, you probably just use 1 can. I mean, for every 2 cans tomato sauce, 3 cans of tomato sauce, or whatever, you only use 1 can of tomato paste. Not a lot of taste. Anyway, now's the time that I'm gonna taste it, because I want to check to see if I need salt. I'm gonna put some oregano in it. All right, so I'm gonna add a little more garlic powder, although I put garlic in it. Garlic powder. I am going to put oregano. Now, oregano, if you get the dried, always make sure you break it. You smish it in your hand to open up the scents, and it cooks better and it tastes better. I would say a pinch. I'm going to throw in a little more. I will definitely throw in salt. I feel it needs it. Yours may not. Let me see if I could show you in my hand. You know, I'm going in increments of that. Remember, I had the pepperoni in there, so I'm going to let that melt in away and see how it tastes after that. So the meatballs are basically done. I just turned off the gas. You can see there's some browning on some of them because it's a big pot, and you know, some of them are getting more brown than the others. However, if we come over here, oh my God, Danny practically finished eating it. The inside is, you could just very little, a hint of pink, when that should be done. Only because it's going to finish cooking in the gravy. So that's what it should look like. I'm going to take them out and put them on a plate just to get them out of the oil that's in the pot, okay? So I had to add a little more of the tomato paste, and as you can see, it's thicker. I added some salt. I added some more garlic powder. I'm probably going to add a little more of the oregano because I like the way that tastes. I don't really add much cheese in here because then it starts getting sticky, like at the bottom. I put the cheese on maybe, you know, after it's served. So this is going to cook for a little while longer. I'm gonna transfer these meatballs out, let them sit for about 10 minutes and then put them in the pot. I'll record me putting them in the pot so you see what that looks like. Okay, so be prepared. This is a very messy dish. Your kitchen's gonna be completely turned upside down. Anyway, so now we're gonna start. Well, first of all, let me tell you what I did here. I added more salt, I tasted it. This is all for taste now. You need to taste it. If you think you need more salt, you add more salt, more garlic, you add more garlic powder, or basil, and oregano. So I added some salt, I added a little more garlic powder, and I added some more oregano. This still has to cook for a couple of hours, but right now the tomato paste is in there. As you can see, it's much thicker, okay? See, I splattered already. I got stuff all over me already. It's a much thicker. I'm gonna start placing in the meatballs. They've sat here they've drained. They're still hot. And I may not be able to fit all of them but we'll see. Mix them around. Believe it or not, they all fit with the exception of the two that Danny ate. Oh yeah, and one left over. It's okay. It's gonna be for me to eat. But this will cook for another hour or so. Now what I want you to do is lower the heat to a medium, low medium. You can see the medium flame. You guys who have electric heat, you're gonna have to figure it out. Constantly turn every 20 minutes or so. Constantly turn, especially if you're dealing with a big pot. You want to bring everything up from the bottom up to the top and let them cook evenly. Anyway, and that's it, ladies. After this, it's already late, so this is not going to happen till tomorrow. So I will probably make some pasta, and I'll show you when you make your pasta. When you make your pasta, you put half a cup or maybe even half a cup of your starchy water into your gravy. And for whatever reason, that marries that pasta to this gravy. It sticks better. Don't ask me why. It's just something that I found out through the years. But anyway, enjoy. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope it was informative. I'm going to piece everything together and send it to you soon. Bye.